Hey, what's going on, guys? It's David here from Genzio. We are in Bangkok, Thailand at Devcon. This is the GM podcast, and I'm here with Thibault from Hibachi. Thibault, how are you doing, man?
Good to be here.
Yeah, man.
I'm excited, man. Excited.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise.
Is this your first time in Thailand?
No, actually, I did my senior trip here back in high school. So last time I was here was 2016. So it's been a while, but yeah, first time in Bangkok.
Okay, yeah. What other parts did you visit?
I've been to Chiang Mai, Koh Samui, Phuket. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice. All right, I gotta just ask right off the bat, Hibachi, where did this name? How did we get there?
That's a good question. We were driving in Miami and saw a hibachi restaurant, and we were at the time just looking for a good name that was memorable and also kind of nodded to Asia in a way, because I think in general we want this to be very much catered towards the East, and hibachi just sounded cool. There's really no real story behind it other than just like having a good sticky name to attach into.
I think of hibachi chef just
going
off.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, let's cook.
Let's cook,
You know what I mean? You're going to an exchange, you kind of want to cook up some trades. There is a lot of wordplay and interesting branding elements that we want to play into. And I'm super excited to kind of just even do cool branded products and chopsticks and bowls and anything really. Yeah.
You saved me some.
I got you. Yeah.
So, I mean, we should touch on your journey a little bit to that point. You mentioned that you stopped here for your senior trip.
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, sure. So originally grew up in France and Mexico. My dad's French, my mom's Mexican. That was until I was around 12 years old. And then my dad was like, okay, enough of this. Let's go discover a bit more of the world. And I think he really moved us to Asia for that exact reason. There was people ask me like, "Oh, is it like your dad's job?" Like, yeah, in a way, but I think there's a underlying objective from him of like giving us early exposure to different cultures and languages. So moved here when I was around like 13, 14 to Hong Kong. I mean, not here, but in Hong Kong, and did most of my high school there, and then got the ability to travel to like Southeast Asia and just Asia in general a lot, mostly through sports. A lot of our, kind of conferences are international. So it kind of feels nice to be back in Asia, honestly. And I kind of stumbled into an industry that's super Asia centric in a way. And I think I couldn't be happier to have the ability to visit and spend more time here again.
Yeah, it is definitely accepted.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, I mean, like, we're talking about that. What aspects of your background led you to forming Hibachi then?
Yeah. So after Asia, went to New York to study NYU, with majors in finance and marketing. Very early on, I was kind of amazed at how much inefficiency and the different components of things that we were learning about, and like the infrastructure of the financial world and just like macro markets and how things worked. I kind of got a little bit thrown off by how slow things were. I remember just taking corporate finance classes and learning about how, in order to settle transactions between cross-country, like currencies and like foreign exchanges, you essentially had to do a ton of, back and forth, etc. So I had that like chip on my shoulder where early on where I was like, okay, there's definitely a clear path here for innovation. And I think that's where I started to kind of look at blockchain as a viable solution for an alternative to financial markets. So that was kind of like first kind of aha moment for myself. And then, a lot of things happened from then to now, but I would say that's kind of like the root of my appetite to deep dive into blockchain.
Yeah, the journey is beautiful, right? In anything that you do.
Yeah.
Steps. So I love thinking about, we got to take 3 steps forward, then 2 steps back, and then 6 steps forward.
Yeah.
So I mean, the journey's beautiful, and sometimes we got to take a step back and realize that, hey, we got to enjoy the journey as well.
Yeah. Nothing is linear.
No.
That's one thing that kind of just being in the space, I think we go through a lot of setbacks, and
Yeah.
we kind of innovate one direction, and then we realize, okay, maybe that wasn't the best place to go, and we kind of got to take that step back and reassess things, and we're constantly doing that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it takes time, honestly, maybe even decades for an industry to really mature and be at its like most optimal and kind of best path end game kind of situation. So, yeah,
I mean, joy doesn't feel so good if it wasn't for pain.
that's true. Yeah.
So how do the inefficiencies in traditional finance infrastructure drive your innovation with blockchain?
So the things that I think blockchain really solves, for me, it kind of comes down to two things. One is settlement, and two, transparency. When I think about blockchain as a solution for those, I think those are the ones that I can most clearly see a path for. One thing that I think as an industry we sometimes don't do as well is maintain nuance. I think there's a lot of people that really kind of take an approach where, oh, blockchain is going to completely eradicate finance, and it's going to be cannibalize the industry completely, kind of like going from a CD to Spotify. I don't really see it that way. I really think that there are core components of traditional finance that need innovation, but there's a real kind of case to be told about like a coexisting solution that is kind of like a cargo ship to cargo planes situation versus like CD to Spotify. We're looking at we're still using cargo ships for many different reasons, but even though the planes are technically faster, right? And they get your things from point A to point B. So there's just, for me, I'm hyper focused on like settlement solutions and transparency, because I think those are like the most obvious ones. Like I was reading this story, I think it was a few months ago, about like the heir of Hermes, and he had like a ton of Hermes shares, but they lost him. Like they're just like lost somewhere. Like his financial manager maybe did something wrong, or they don't even know. Like there's really no like
dust in the wind.
Just billions of dollars just gone. Like nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be found. That's just not possible with like blockchain. Everything is just publicly available at all times, and so those like very clear things to me are just like so obvious. I'm like so certain that we're going to get to a place where even traditional finance will adopt blockchain tech to make sure things like that don't happen.
So how does Hibachi aim to become the brick house in crypto exchange, and with transparency and with experience?
I think one thing to think about when you look at the history of exchanges, even just specifically in crypto, you kind of have this story of failures, honestly. You go from a first generation of centralized exchanges, and even before that, I think crypto and blockchain was kind of the ethos of blockchain was transparency and really not having to trust an institution ever again. But then what happened is we just went from trusting one institution to having to trust another one, really quickly. And I think we didn't really have the time to think about that. So that's not, that's kind of like if we go into like the little pigs analogy, the three little pigs, the first one builds a house of hay. That's the centralized exchange, right? Like it builds super fast and it works, right? It has shelter and you can trade and it's fast and a lot of really good things are there, but it doesn't have transparency. And so you have things that happen, we were all there, like FTX type situations where it kind of resets things. And then I think the second generation of exchanges is the decentralized exchange where everything was on chain. You're like, okay, like we need transparency, let's do transparency. But then we went like, I think we overcorrected and we were like, okay, we need everything to be on chain. Like when you think about an order book, there's so many layers to the order book. And if you try to do everything on chain with the existing tech, you just are compromising on speed for sure. Like there's just no way around it. So then you ended up with these two solutions that are not quite there. One that's fast and then the one that's transparent. And Hibachi, the brick house for us is really kind of like brick by brick, offering you a solution that combines all of the dots here. And we're also doing it by adopting new like scaling technology with like risk zero and ZK and like modularity with Celestia. I think we're really assembling the Avengers to create like an exchange that is built for the future. And it's the next generation for us.
The A-team.
Yeah, it's like the super team. Yeah,
the Hibachi A-team. I love that, man.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And that little pig analogy, actually, You're the first person that I heard that from. And you know what? I'm definitely going to use that to explain to people who maybe, want to ask me questions or maybe want to know more.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic analogy.
It's so great, man, because there's also the wolf.
Yeah, no, I wanted to say, and then that wolf came and
Wolf, it does come.
It does come, yeah.
And so you want to take your time.
Yeah.
I think in that analogy, it's like the first pig wants to build a hay house because he wants to have time to play it.
Right.
It's so perfect.
No,
Because
it's perfect. It's
like,
really, really
we're all
good.
just kind of also trying to just gamble and have fun and stuff.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but there's some certain things that just need to be, I think, taken really seriously. And a place to transact
For sure.
and exchange is so ingrained in the core of our industry. It's the number one use case for me of crypto is markets, right? Like access to markets. And if you're not doing that well, you don't really have crypto. I really believe that. Yeah.
I mean, if you're not doing well,
What else is there? Yeah. So.
Cool. All right. So, what makes Hibachi's combination of user-focused tech and blockchain's verifiability truly next gen?
It's the promise of an exchange that's built for professional traders with instant verification and always, an ability to see the state of the exchange. It's essentially like Binance speed without having to trust an institution and the ability to manage your own funds. That's kind of the end state here, and what we believe is how exchanges are going to be designed moving forward.
Okay. Well, what I'll ask you now is not what I'm going to ask you at the end, but where do you see it?
I think everybody will have to add in a component of transparency. It's just at this point table stakes. That's the whole nature of DeFi, and DeFi is a very strong voice in crypto in general. So there's really, for me, no way that we evolve into a future where every exchange is not verifiable to some degree, right? And you saw this after FTX, the Binances of the world and the centralized exchanges have proof of reserves, and they have a lot of different ways for a user to kind of verify the health of the exchange.
Yeah.
And that's great, but it's not at scale yet. They're just designed in an older fashion, meaning that they're not able to, at the core, have these verifiable solutions at every trade level. So however you decide to build your order book, but having transparency is going to have to become, again, the core of what we offer.
That's basically is an answer to what I want to ask you next, is why is provable technology crucial to your vision in crypto exchange, right?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of falls in line with what you're saying.
It's exactly that. I think provable as well is kind of taking a bit of a rebellious approach to DeFi and just blockchain in general, because we're kind of going back to the basics in a way. We're just kind of it's okay to have private compute. There's nothing wrong with running a fast order book that's centralized by nature, because at the end of the day, I really don't think a lot of people are thinking about it the way that we do. The end user doesn't care about if the order matching is on chain or not. They just want a good experience, a good user experience. So provable, I think, is really just pushing that message out there that not everything needs to be on chain for it to be verifiable and trustless and maintain the ethos of crypto. So this kind of appeal for private compute but public verification is really what provable means to us.
Yeah.
And it could be for anything. It doesn't have to just be for exchanges. Exchanges is the first use case, and we're the first exchange to adopt that. But there's a lot to be said about that. Kind of going back to what you were saying, 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. We're kind of getting to this point where I think it's okay to say that not everything needs to be on chain for it to work. We had an election and people were praising poly markets.
Yeah.
No one was oh, poly market is not fully on chain.
Dude, I even saw there were schools where they were banning kids from talking about it because there were so many people that were getting involved in it and they couldn't stop talking about it.
But no one's did you hear anybody say, oh, the poly market is not true crypto because it's not fully on chain? People just care about good user experience and cutting edge tech.
Exactly. Yeah. How is their experience with it? Exactly. Which then makes you think, okay, how would you advise somebody who's maybe new to the space to get involved with this?
Again, you have to look at the products that put the user first. And it sounds so obvious,
right?
but it's not really the case yet.
Yeah.
Like at scale, right? There's some really, really great products out there now, I think. And at the end of the day, I think that naturally new entrants into the industry would adopt those first, because in other ways they're used to really good experiences. So they shouldn't compromise that for our industry. So I would advise a new entrant to just kind of look at whatever they feel most comfortable using and what's the easiest way for them to onboard with, again, like the ability to make sure that they're not putting their assets at risk. That's essentially it.
Why did you choose perpetuals as Hibachi's starting product in redefining financial products?
So perpetuals are interesting because we want to innovate as an exchange, but we also want to offer the future of asset classes too. I think we're really excited about perpetuals because they're kind of an option, but on steroids, and it's really fun to trade. You have instant leverage and the ability to kind of 10x your earnings if you make the right call. You have the ability to essentially never have to choose a closing date. Like you don't have a set date that you have to settle anything. It's just like, oh yeah, you think Bitcoin's going to go up? Here you go, take 10x on it. It's just such a great asset class, in my opinion, that's been very much like made popular by crypto, but it's not really. We didn't invent it. I think when you think about the history of perps, they've tried to do it in TradFi many times, and they've failed. Again, because there's just too much existing infrastructure that's like decades old, where you can't really build new asset classes. But we're kind of in this like new industry. We can offer perpetuals and at scale, and our markets never close, so you never sleep, and you're kind of just like always able to take a leveraged gamble on a bet on any market. So I think perpetuals for us were the natural evolution, where we wanted to build an exchange that is built forward looking, but we also wanted to offer products that are also going to be a very core component of the future of markets as well.
How does Hibachi's diverse team bring a unique advantage in building a next generation exchange?
We have a very interesting kind of mix of expertise in our team. We spent a lot of time building up the team from scratch with the objective of kind of trying to cover all the different components of what it takes to run a good exchange. So you'll see kind of people that are very much like industry veterans that have been in DeFi for a long time, have scaled up exchanges and from spot to NFT marketplace, whatever it is, right? Yeah. So we have that at the core, but then we've also hired a really strong engineering team that's kind of people coming in from TradFi like Citadel, Tower, Bank of America, that have been also very much at the forefront of TradFi and have seen the inefficiencies, right? I honestly like ask them all the time, like, hey, like, how is this different from when you were working at Bank of America? Like, what are the key things that you think we can innovate on? So you have industry expertise, you have like TradFi converts, and then we also have a good amount of the team that's coming from just traditional tech. So whether it's like Amazon or Uber, Meta, at the end of the day, what we wanted to make sure we had as well when we look at like our team that is coming from a tech background is the marketplace component. An exchange is a marketplace, and I really want to find and get to a place where we kind of have this Amazon moment where everything is kind of permissionless, and you can list anything on an exchange, and it's like, again, it's all just there and available to you, right? Like if I'm launching a meme coin and I want to offer it on this exchange, like I can just, it's like, again, going on Amazon and like becoming a seller on Amazon. Right? Like I think that mentality and that approach is where I kind of lean on to those big tech people that have experienced how to run a marketplace, where I'm really like looking forward to use that expertise. Yeah.
Diversity is the spice of life.
Yeah. No, I mean, and also in general,
right?
exactly,
In
exactly.
And it's the truth.
Yeah.
All right, man, that's awesome. And having those people that are, like you mentioned from Bank of America and that sort of thing, having that intel is like such an advantage, right?
Yeah.
Kind of gives you other perspectives of, how to approach some things, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So what excites you most about offering institutional grade trading without trust in institutions through Hibachi?
I think in general, what I'm most excited about is to see adoption in the industry, just like grow. And I think we're talking right now, and it's a great time, right? We've seen kind of like upward mobility for a week or so since the election, and honestly, I'm already seeing kind of like the results of that in some ways, where traditional kind of professional traders that have been trading equities for decades are like, maybe I will start trading crypto. There's just, I'm very excited for more people to make the leap and to do it in an industry where they're not compromising their assets. I think there's a lot of the reluctance we get from like traditional trading shops that are, either trading something in TradFi. When I ask them like, okay, why aren't you guys trading crypto? It's kind of like a risk thing. It's always a risk thing, right? Because people like volatility, right? So it's not a volatility thing, because a high frequency trading shop, they want the volatility. They wish they could trade it. But they're just like are more risk averse, and that's fair. You have to understand also kind of where they're coming from, and they're looking at this like relatively new industry versus something that's been around for hundreds of years. It's going to take time. So what I'm most excited about is one, to, like you said, build something that is institutional grade, and that is fast and performant and is really kind of cutting edge in that aspect of things. But then whenever I get the question, which I will get every single time, like, okay, like, where's the catch? I can tell them, you don't even have to worry about us managing your funds, because we don't. There's no FTX type thing where I'm gonna run away. Like, that's also new in TradFi. Like when we see this ourselves, you deposit into a bank, you don't know where that, you know that you don't have that money sitting somewhere in like a vault. It's not the case. So I think that trustlessness is again, going back to like moments in New York when I was like learning about traditional markets and macros like that. It's really where I think it's gonna be something net new across the spectrum, right, of any market. So yeah, it's super exciting.
So fast forward 5 years from now, where do you see Web3?
I think Web3 is still very early in a lot of its narratives. We know kind of like the top things that people use now. So those are not going away. Like if we think about like stable coins or even perpetuals, like those are very much the most, in my opinion, established products in crypto that we've seen so far. If I'm to look at it in 5 years, I see a lot more of that for sure. And I see a world where we also compete a lot in terms of just like global payment systems. I think it's like we haven't really gotten any kind of mainstream adoption, really. Like the number of people who have adopted crypto, who have used crypto before, is so small that I don't think we have a problem in terms of what we can solve. I think we just have a distribution problem. And again, like a user experience problem. And I think as we get more people to build in our industry and to really focus on the user, we have the tech for it. Like we have enough chains to support pretty much any transaction at this point. I think there are some fundamental needs in that we actually probably don't even realize ourselves, because if you live in the US or in the West, you don't really feel these pains. For example, just like transacting internationally or having access to yield or a stable, non-super inflationary currency, those are kind of privileges, right? You really have to look at crypto as like a very real solution for somebody that's not banked, whether it's in like any kind of third world country or environment. You're able to offer them trustless banking, yields, and also just markets, an ability to make real money online. So I'm excited to distribute that at scale. So I think we have what we want to offer the world. I think now it's just time to do it in the best way possible.
And to do it live.
Exactly. Yeah. It's going to be a good 5 years.
It was a pleasure to meet you. Your journey is inspiring, and I can't wait to link up outside of this.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Good to see you.
You too.
Hey, what's up?
This is
But
Zach.
it's not something Genzio is afraid of.
If you want to survive, you got to build a
I
hive.
need to know we do not understand.
Three, two, one.
Ladies and gentlemen,
We're back at the Genzio Media House.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today.